Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we are going to be diving into online business trends for 2025.
Oh, yeah?
And to help us navigate this ever-changing landscape, we have a fantastic post from blogwidow.com, and this one's called The Top Online Business Trends You Can't Afford to Ignore.
Love that title.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Really grabs you. But we are not just going to read this off. We are going to really unpack it. We're going to look at why these trends matter, like how do they connect and what do they really mean for someone like you listening right now.
Yeah, that's the goal here, right? To give you those actionable insights.
Exactly. So get ready because we are talking about everything from AI doing SEO to subscription services for basically everything, and even shopping on TikTok. Are you ready to level up your business game?
I am.
All right. Well, Blog Widow jumps right in and says that AI and automation, they are no longer just nice to haves. They are essential. They're saying it's not just hype anymore.
Not at all. We are way past the hype cycle now, and,
Yeah.
and we're really seeing AI shift from, that kind of futuristic concept to a practical toolkit.
Yeah. For businesses to improve efficiency, cut costs, and actually create a better customer experience.
I was reading the article, and there were a few examples that really, clicked for me.
Right.
Like AI chatbots handling customer questions 24/7.
Right.
I mean, that could be huge for small businesses who, don't have a big team.
Absolutely takes a lot off your plate.
And what about those machine learning algorithms that suggest products that you might actually want?
Yes.
I'll admit, sometimes it's a little creepy. It's like they know me better than I know myself. But how does AI actually work for SEO? Isn't that a bit more complex?
It is getting very sophisticated. AI can analyze massive amounts of data
Right.
to figure out what content ranks high in searches. It can help you write that content, optimize keywords, and even track your website's performance.
Wow. So it's really like taking on some serious heavy lifting.
It is.
Kind of makes you wonder what jobs will look like in the future.
Right? But before we completely spiral into a robot takeover scenario, let's move on to trend number 2, which Blog Widow calls subscription-based everything.
Ooh, yes.
Why are these models so popular these days? Why is everyone doing subscriptions?
Well, it's appealing for both sides.
Mhm.
Businesses love that predictable income and that customer loyalty that comes with it.
Right.
Think software subscriptions or those curated boxes that you get every month.
I love those. I love getting a box of curated snacks each month. It takes the thinking out of grocery shopping for me.
Right.
But are we reaching peak subscription fatigue? How many subscriptions can one person really handle?
Oh, that's a good question.
Have you noticed a lot more of these options lately?
Definitely. And yes, there is potential for overload. The key for businesses is to offer something truly unique and valuable.
Right.
Not just another subscription for the sake of it.
Mm.
Consumers are getting much more discerning these days.
Mm.
They really want subscriptions that cater to their specific needs and their passions.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just about jumping on the bandwagon, right? You really need to be offering that value.
You do.
Now let's shift gears to a trend that's been building for a while, mobile first.
Yes.
The article really states that mobile optimization, it's no longer a suggestion, it's a necessity. Why is that?
Well, simply put, more people access the internet through their smartphones than desktops these days.
Oh, wow.
So that shift impacts everything from how your website ranks in searches
Yeah.
to the rise of those mobile payment options we were talking about.
Yeah.
It even changes how people shop.
So if your website looks terrible on a phone, you're basically invisible to half the population.
Pretty much. You're missing out on a huge segment of potential customers.
Yeah.
Think about how often you use your phone to browse, shop, or even connect with businesses.
Mm-hmm.
It's become second nature for most of us.
You're preaching to the choir here. I practically live on my phone.
Right.
Okay. Now, this next trend really caught my eye, social media, is the new mall. What is going on there?
It's called social commerce. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah.
They're turning into shopping destinations. So users can actually buy products directly through shoppable posts, stories, and even live streams now.
Wow. So instead of sending people to your website, you're bringing the shop to them.
Exactly. Minimizing those steps to purchase.
That's a very smart move. But what about influencers? What role do they play in all this?
Oh, a huge one. Their recommendations carry a lot of weight, especially with those younger generations. It's like having a trusted friend suggest a product.
That's true. It's all about trust, isn't it? Have
Yeah.
you ever been swayed by an influencer and bought something?
Maybe once or twice.
I'll admit I have. But let's move on to a trend that's really close to my heart. Sustainability and ethical business practices. Blog Widow mentions that consumers are really gravitating towards businesses that align with their values. Why is this happening now?
I think there's been a real shift in awareness and expectations. People are much more informed these days about social and environmental issues, and they want to support businesses that are doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the product or service anymore. It's about the whole package: ethical sourcing, eco-friendly packaging, transparency,
Yeah.
and a genuine commitment to making a positive impact.
It really makes you think about where you spend your money, you know? Do you find yourself looking for those things when you make a
Oh,
purchase?
absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
And businesses need to be authentic in their efforts.
Hmm.
Because consumers are savvy, they can spot greenwashing from a mile away.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it has to be a genuine commitment, not just a marketing ploy.
Well said. And we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yep.
We've talked about AI subscriptions, mobile first, social commerce, ethical business practices.
I know, right?
And that's all just in part one.
Yeah, and they are connected. So stick with us, because in part 2, we're going to explore those connections even further.
So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more insights on how to navigate the future of online business.
Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into the trends that are shaping the future of online business in 2025 and beyond. We just scratched the surface in part 1, talking about AI subscriptions going mobile first and the move towards ethical and sustainable business practices.
Yeah, we really just dipped our toes in.
But now we are going to take that deep dive that we promised. We are going to explore those connections between those trends we touched on.
Exactly, because they are all connected.
Remember that warning about data privacy? Seems like that's kind of a thread that runs through all of these trends.
It really is. Data privacy isn't just like a legal box to tick anymore. It's really at the core of building customer trust. And without trust, your online business isn't going to get very far.
Especially with AI and automation playing such a big role these days. Like, if you're handing over your personal data to an algorithm, you want to know it's being handled responsibly.
Absolutely.
No
People
doubt.
want transparency. They
Yeah.
want to know how their data is being used, by whom, and for what purpose. Right. And that ties into that growing demand for ethical business practices that we talked about earlier.
It does.
And that transparency needs to go beyond data. I think, consumers are looking at everything: sustainability, ethical sourcing, you name it. And they're voting with their wallets. They're supporting businesses that share their values.
They are. And that's where content marketing comes in. It's not just about promoting your product. It's about telling your brand story and connecting with your audience in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
You need to demonstrate your commitment to these things, to sustainability, ethical practices, data privacy, through the content that you're creating.
And that content needs to be mobile friendly, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
we know everyone's on their phones these days.
Which brings us right back to social commerce. It's really amazing how these platforms like Instagram and TikTok have become such powerful sales channels.
It just makes sense. People are already spending so much time on these platforms. Why not make it easy for them to buy things right there, without having to jump through all these hoops?
Yeah, cut out those
Yeah.
extra steps.
Exactly. Streamline that process.
And, we were talking about influencers before, and they can really make or break a product these days.
That's why authenticity is so crucial. As consumers are getting much more discerning, they can spot a fake endorsement from a mile away. It's all about building genuine relationships, between brands and influencers, but also between influencers and their followers.
It's about building that trust.
It is.
So based on all of these things that we've been talking about, all these trends, what do you think the future of online business is going to look like? What kind of picture are you seeing?
Well, I really think we're moving towards a much more customer-centric future. Businesses are prioritizing things like data privacy, ethical practices, sustainability, not just because it's good for business, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And we're seeing technology being used to really enhance that customer experience, whether that's through, personalized recommendations or AI-powered chatbots or seamless mobile payments.
And I think we're also seeing a lot more businesses embracing remote work and global teams and realizing that, having these diverse perspectives actually leads to more innovative solutions.
Definitely.
It's a pretty exciting picture, I think, but I'm sure some business owners listening might be feeling a little overwhelmed. There's a lot of changes happening.
Yep.
What advice would you give them?
I'd say focus on the fundamentals. Build that strong foundation of trust, transparency, and really adopt that customer-centric approach. And then from there, embrace the technology, but make sure it aligns with your values and actually improves the customer experience. Don't just adopt it for the sake of it.
It has to have a purpose.
It does.
And don't be afraid to experiment and adapt as you go, because we know the digital world is constantly changing. So that flexibility and willingness to learn is really essential.
And stay informed about those emerging trends. That's why we're doing this deep dive.
That's right. Speaking of staying informed, let's move on to part 3, where we'll explore some of the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for online businesses in 2025 and beyond. Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into online business trends for 2025. We've talked about a lot, everything from the rise of AI and those super smart algorithms to the power of social commerce.
And the importance of data privacy and those ethical and sustainable business practices that customers are really looking for these days.
Right. We've covered so much ground, but as we wrap up, it's important to acknowledge that all these amazing opportunities that we've been talking about also come with their own set of challenges.
They do. The digital world is constantly changing, and businesses need to be ready to adapt.
So what kind of challenges are you seeing on the horizon? What should people be thinking about?
One of the biggest challenges is competition. As more and more businesses move online, it's getting harder and harder to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, it's not enough to just have a website or be on social media anymore, right?
Exactly.
Well,
You
wow.
really need to offer something special.
So how do you break through all that noise?
You need to create genuinely unique and compelling experiences, something that really resonates with your target audience.
It's not business as usual anymore.
Not at all. It takes creativity, innovation, and a deep understanding of what your customers really want.
It's about really knowing your audience.
It is. And another challenge is keeping up with the rapid pace of technological change.
Oh, yeah. New tools and platforms are popping up all the time.
All the time. And it can be really tough for businesses to stay ahead of the curve, especially if they don't have the resources or the expertise in-house.
So what's the solution? How do you stay relevant when everything is changing so quickly?
I think strategic partnerships and collaborations can be a real game changer.
Yeah.
By working with other businesses or technology providers, you can gain access to that expertise and those resources that you need to stay competitive.
So it's like pooling your resources and knowledge.
Exactly. And it's also important to foster a culture of continuous learning within your organization. Encourage your team to stay curious, to experiment with new tools and to share their knowledge with each other.
It's about creating a learning environment where everyone is growing and evolving.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to invest in training and mentorship programs to keep your team's skills sharp.
There are tons of resources out there to help businesses navigate the digital world.
There are.
So it sounds like there's a lot to be optimistic about, but also a lot to keep in mind as we move forward.
Definitely.
What are some key takeaways that you want our listeners to walk away with from this deep dive? What are the most important things to remember?
Well, first and foremost, these trends are all interconnected. They're not happening in isolation.
Right, it's all connected.
Exactly. The rise of AI is influencing data privacy concerns, which are impacting consumer expectations, which are driving that demand for ethical and sustainable business practices.
It's like a chain reaction.
It is.
Yeah.
And understanding these connections can really help businesses make smarter decisions. And another key takeaway is that the customer is more empowered than ever before.
They have access to more information,
Yeah.
more choices, and more influence.
They do. So businesses really need to listen to their customers, understand their values, and build those genuine relationships based on trust and transparency.
It's not just about selling a product or a service anymore.
It's not.
It's about building a community
It is.
and connecting with your audience on a deeper level.
Exactly. And finally, businesses need to be agile and adaptable.
Yeah.
The only constant is change. So be willing to experiment, learn, and evolve as the digital landscape shifts.
So true. So to wrap up this whole deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to ponder. What new trends might emerge in this ever-changing world of online business? What innovations will shape the next 5 years?
That's a great question. And while we can't predict the future, one thing is for sure, the possibilities are endless.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the top online business trends of 2025. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
We did too.
And be sure to check out blogwidow.com for the full article and other valuable content.
Lots of great stuff over there.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep diving deep.